Okay, let's talk about the wide receivers, the guys at the top of our rankings. Michael Thomas playing on Monday Night Football against the Colts. Chris Godwin, without Mike Evans, playing against Detroit. And then DeAndre Hopkins playing against the Titans. Sean, who are you high on?
I am high on Cortland Sutton this week. If I told you that Drew Lock threw for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns and Sutton had a dud, you wouldn't believe me, but that's what happened. I think he's due for a huge bounce back game. He's ran a route on 100% of the dropbacks the past 3 weeks. This is going to be a pass heavy game script against the Chiefs. So I think he might be under-owned this week. He's only 5,900. And he's my wide receiver 12 to start the week. So expect a bounce back game from him. And then, the Jaguars, 2 receivers, D.D. Westbrook and Chris Connelly, they're underpriced because I believe the DJ Chark news wasn't announced until, pricing came out that he was going to miss this week. Both players get a boost with Chark out. D.D., I would say, is the safer high floor option, more for cash games, for season-long fantasy at 4,600 on DraftKings. Well, whereas Conley, he's more of the dart throw high upside guy at 3,600. He'll be a popular GPP play this week. His ceiling's pretty high in that offense with Chark out. So I think he'll be a popular play in DFS tournaments this week.
Hey, Freeman.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
I actually was going to kick it to you about, because I always like Corbin Sutton has been a hard guy to rank this year with all the quarterback turnover, and he's been just making some big plays. So I'm looking at his wide receiver cornerback matchup. It looks like he'll probably match up with Bashaud Breeland the most, who has a 46.6 PFF rating, which is bad. But I'm looking at Kansas City's DVOA versus number 1 wide receivers, and they're number 1 in the league, giving up only 46.5 schedule adjusted yards per game. So any thoughts on, I guess, that matchup and what is Kansas City doing to kind of limit number 1 wide receivers?
Sorry, 1 second. Let me get into that piece. Yeah, I actually think he's going to play against Charvarius Ward.
Okay.
Yeah, and Ward is the so all of those cornerbacks I think are relatively about the same, but they're different in terms of their style of play. So Kendall Fuller is the slot cornerback, and then Bashaud Breeland is really not all that fast of a guy. Like, I kind of don't understand how he still has a job, to be honest. But he's done better this year than he has in the past, even though he has a lower PFF grade. And as you mentioned, against number 1 wide receivers, they've done well this year, even though Breeland has done poorly. And so I don't know if that is just sort of a discrepancy between the way that PFF grades and the actual production that we see from players on the field. If that's, for lack of a better phrase, a shortcoming with PFF, or if it's just kind of randomness in a 16-game sample. I really don't know. Do you have any opinion on what's going on there? I mean, because I know Bashaud Breeland isn't that good. I know his PFF grade is bad, and in the past he hasn't played well. But this year, just as a unit, that secondary has played well enough, and he himself hasn't been radically exposed.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at the numbers. Guys who play in the slot as number 1s have kind of had some success. So Keenan Allen went 8 for 71 and 1. Julian Edelman 895 and 1. But I'm looking for kind of outside guys.
And the thing to keep in mind is that they've been without Kendall Fuller for their starting slot corner for a chunk of the year. So some of those games came against Rashad Felton or something. Benton. Yeah. So it's.
I mean, so Stephon Diggs went 1 for 4 on 4 targets. Tyrell Williams went 1 for 9 on 4 targets. So I'm guessing that's what's going into the DVOA.
Yeah.
Sutton, though, in the first matchup went 6 for 87. So, I mean, I guess it's Hopkins. They did hold Hopkins to 9 for 55 on 12 targets. T.Y. Hilton 4 for 37 on 5 targets. Galladay got 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, I think it's probably more randomness than anything.
Yeah.
And those two really bad lines from Diggs and Tyrell probably drove it down. But, yeah, I was just curious because Sutton's been a guy that's just been like he's been really hard to rank for me.
Yeah. Okay, Raybon, who are you relatively high on this week?
I am high on Darius Leighton. We saw him have a big game on Monday night, and I didn't quite expect that. I had him ranked a little higher than consensus, but I didn't think he would have such a monster game just because Eli tends to check it down a little more, and there's going to be bad weather. But Slayton's really come on, and I think this is the time of year when we start to see these younger wide receivers break out, and we're seeing it with A.J. Brown and a couple, Debo obviously, and Slayton's target share just keeps increasing. And, even with guys that you would, normally hog targets, Tate, Shepard, he's played some games with Ingram, Barkley's been in there for a lot of the time. Slayton's been a full-time player, and he's still, his target share has been steadily increasing, and now he's going against the Dolphins. And this is a matchup where they get beat deep down the field. They get beat in the intermediate. Well, they really get beat everywhere. But I like Slayton to keep it going. He's up to a 18% target share, and that's only with running about 85% of the routes for the season. Whereas these last few games, he's been up right near 100%. So I think you have a lot of upside there with him because Tate and Shepard are more of underneath guys. And even if Ingram comes back, I think he's still going to be a full-time player. So like him at 4.7K. Obviously the pricing came out before his blow-up game last week. Also like Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones, I'm probably going to be higher on them than consensus, just like Blau. Tampa Bay again, just a pass funnel with the top 5 run defense and a pass defense that's right around 20th in the league in DVOA. So I think Galladay has, number 1 overall wide receiver potential, and Marvin Jones is in my top 20 as well. Tampa Bay 22nd versus both number 1 and number 2s in DVOA.
Rayvon, I'm with you on Slayton going against a Dolphins defense that has allowed a millionaire maker winning wide receiver in 4 straight weeks, which is pretty incredible. John Brown in week 11, Jarvis Landry in week 12, Alshon Jeffrey in week 13, and then Robbie Anderson last week. So yeah, whether it's Slayton, Shepard, Golden Tate, Slayton is the guy I would go with out of that bunch because I think he has the most upside, like the highest volatility. And when looking specifically at rookie wide receivers, overall numbers and consistency is nice, but it's pretty rare for a rookie wide receiver to be all that consistent. And so when thinking about a guy's potential moving forward, I tend to I try to find spike weeks. Like if a guy shows upside as a rookie, I think that's pretty indicative of what he could do in years 2 through 5. And Slayton has had some massive performances this year. 3 games with 2 touchdowns, and 2 of those games had over 100 yards receiving. He's a legit player, I think, for future seasons. And then this week against Miami, there is a lot to like about him.
The Bucks and Dolphins are 32 and 31 in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight end. So it's a wide receiver. So Galladay's had a bunch of 2 touchdown games as well. Like you could, and then AJ Brown. We talked about Ryan Tannehill, like Brown, Slayton, Galladay. I could see that being like the winning Millie Maker combination.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. One guy I like quite a bit. Don't need to kind of touch on him too much because we've talked about him in past weeks, but DJ Moore, just getting elite usage. I don't fear the Seahawks. I think they're going to be in a situation where they're going to have to pass the ball quite a bit. So I like what he does. And I think it's too much to just lock him in as like a top 5 receiver each week. But I think at this point, he's pretty clearly hard not to include in the top 10, just given his talent and then also the usage that he has. Sean, who are you relatively low on? And if you say DJ Moore, I'm going to drive to LA And yeah, yeah.
No, I said I think it was like week 12. This is the last week DJ Moore is going to be under 6K on DK, and I think that's been true. So no, I love DJ Moore. Love that call. I'm low on Cooper Kupp at Dallas. I mentioned I'm low on Goff in general this week, so the Rams passing attack I'm going to be relatively low on. But Kupp oddly only played 29% of the snaps last week. Granted, they were mostly passing downs. He still ran around on 52% of the dropbacks. But right now, this offense goes through Robert Woods, Todd Gurley, and even Tyler Higbee right now. I was looking at the snap counts, and Johnny Munt, the backup tight end, played 71% of the snaps, 0 routes run. So they're just running more 2 tight end sets. And for some reason, it's at the expense of Cooper Kupp. He's ran less routes than both Woods and even Brandon Cook the past 2 games. So we just cannot think of him as, the top passing option going forward until this trend changes. So at 65K this week, I'm fading him completely. And I've been high on Woods lately, but this week I'm even higher on him with this usage. I think they're going to continue that until it stops working. And the other guy I'm low on is Stephon Diggs at the Chargers at 7,300. He is way too expensive. Adam Thielen should return this week. Who knows at this point? But the targets are going to be pretty spread out if he does. The Chargers have held 7 of their last 10 opponents to less than 185 yards passing. And I mean, that includes recent games against guys like Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes and future first ballot Hall of Famer Drew Lock now. So, the Chargers defense in general is a situation I typically avoid, opposing passing offenses. So this week, Stephon Diggs is way too overpriced at 7,300.
I have a hardcore nerdy projection question, but I mean, it's week 15, so the people listening are probably pretty hardcore. But yeah. for a guy like Kupp, how much do you weight the most recent weeks, like route percentage or snap percentage versus like his season long total?
Well, I mean, you'd have to put it in context. So if he was hurt, obviously you want to just ignore it. But I haven't found anything saying he was hurt. So I'm going to weigh it a little heavier than normal. I mean, weeks 11 and 12, he ran 100% of the routes. That's pretty much what we expect with him. Then week 13, it was 74%. And then last week, 52%. So, I mean, I'll probably have it around 70, 75 this week. Definitely it won't be around 50% again, but it's just concerning to say the least. And, Robert Woods has been the guy that's been averaging over 95%. So I think it's just safe to say that Woods is probably the top option and Kupp is the second. Maybe even behind Tyler Higbee at this point, to be honest. But we'll have to see if Gerald Everett comes back. That might change things, but it's concerning to say the least.
Yeah, because that's like I think I have it right now. His routes at around about 60. Well, my model has it around 63. I bumped it up. I think I'm bumping it up a little more, but yeah, it's an interesting question because it's like he's not hurt. It's just like one of those situations where is it just variance? Because he still got targets last week too. So
well, he got the touchdown, so it bailed people out. So I think people will just chug along thinking he's the same Cooper Kupp when there's very concerning underlying usage trends with him.
Agreed.
Raybon, who are you relatively low on?
Amari Cooper. And this is just because of the potential shadow spot for Jalen Ramsey. We've seen Ramsey in the Rams have a lot of success limiting opposing number 1 wide receivers as of late. So, I think Cooper is more of, like inside the top 20 or around the top 20 receiver this week, and not a top 10 guy that he's been most weeks just because of that danger. I mean, we've seen Tyler Lockett get only 43 yards, Christian Kirk only 23. Marquise Brown got the 2 touchdowns, 42 yards, so that was kind of the outlier. But Allen Robinson only 15 yards on 6 targets. So that is something that I take a little more seriously with the Rams in this spot. And I think, Dak Prescott and Cooper, the connections generally been good. So I don't expect a total dud like on Allen Robinson levels. But I just think that there's the potential there for more of a kind of middling game for Cooper more so than most weeks.
All right. Basically all of the wide receivers who are injured, I'm just relatively low on, and their rankings are going to change as we get more information throughout the week. But Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, I'm relatively pessimistic that they will play this week. So I'm already low on them. One guy who is playing, but I'm relatively low on, Odell Beckham Jr. He has a great matchup against Arizona. I believe Arizona is 32 in PFF coverage grade. I mean, like, they are without question highly exploitable. The main question for me is whether he's going to get his targets. And after the weirdness of last week, I think it could go either one of two ways. Like, I think they could overfeed him and give him double-digit targets, or I think they could just continue this slide that they've had. He's gone from 10 to 8, then 6, and now 5 targets in the last month, right? Like, there is a clear downward trajectory where he is just no longer the guy that they need to get targets to in their offense. They're targeting Jarvis Landry just as much, more than Odell Beckham Jr., and they're also relying quite a bit on their 2 running backs, both to run the ball and then also to get targets to Kareem Hunt. So, and David Njoku is coming back. He didn't get really any action last week, but it was his first game back, and now he has a very exploitable matchup going against the tight end defense of the Cardinals, and he could get a lot of targets that you think would maybe go to Odell Beckham Jr. So I know it's a great spot, and he has the potential for blow up games, but things just seem to be going sideways with the Browns. And I honestly don't know if he's going to get the targets. That's the biggest question that I have. Like, what do you guys think about the targets?
Well, I think that we found out that he's been dealing with sports hernia. I mean, he's going to have surgery on it after the season. And I'm not sure if we know exactly when do you guys have any info on when that started? Because that might be able to explain some of his.
It seemed like the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Mayfield kind of alluded to. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, then who knows? I mean, I was high on Beckham going into the season, but I still thought that, Baker, looking at last year, he does like to spread the ball around, so it could be an issue for him. And now Odell wants out. I have no idea what's going on, but like you said, this matchup, it's hard to ignore him completely. But I think it goes without saying, if he busts this week, heading into the fantasy finals next week against Baltimore, he is going to be in sit-start decisions for sure. So we can't anticipate that, but that's if he does this week. I don't see how he doesn't have a breakout game here. Like you said, maybe pepper him with targets to get him to stay next year, but it's a situation that's has a wide range of outcomes for sure.
Yeah.
I think Freeman's onto something, because for one, Baker Mayfield kind of coming out and saying what he said about the injury, should tell us a lot, because I mean, Baker Mayfield went out of his way to throw his own organization under the bus and essentially excuse Beckham and say, hey, like, he can't run as good. But he said, even if he's him not at 100%, it's still helping us. So that's telling. And then, last season, one of the reasons that I was, looks like mistakenly high on Baker Mayfield coming into the season was he had so much success targeting options other than his number one. I mean, he was averaging over 9 yards of targets of Rashad Perriman, Antonio Callaway, Rashard Higgins, Njoku, like pretty much everyone. But his worst numbers really were to Jarvis Landry as that number one. So Baker, and so this year we're seeing Landry have a lot of success. And I think that's because defenses are still going to pay more attention to Odell Beckham, and Baker Mayfield kind of excels at, okay, the defense, and maybe it's probably Freddie Kitchens has something to do with this as well. But defense is going to focus in on our number one guy. We can scheme other guys, efficient targets. And so now you have, Patrick Peterson's been really bad this year, but this is a situation where, again, if Kitchens and Mayfield are looking out and saying, okay, Patrick Peterson still has the reputation, he has 5-6 bad games, but they're still looking at him as this is one of the top corners in the league, and he's on Beckham. I think it could just be another one of those games where, they go other places and probably have some success. Arizona's been really bad against the pass overall, but I could actually see not too great of a game again for him. And with Kareem Hunt back, the Browns are averaging only 20. Wow. 29.6 30. Okay, no, 32.4 pass attempts per game. Since Hunt came, and they're averaging more running back carries. Their running back carries have gone up. So it's a situation where it's not looking as promising for Beckham as we may think, despite the matchup.
Well, I had a different receiver for our wide receiver props, but I think I'll throw out Beckham out there for us to settle this.
All right, here's one more quick thought on this to undermine my own perspective that this might not be a great spot. Patrick Peterson has been so bad this year that for the past 2 games, they haven't even let him shadow. They've just put him on one side of the field and just say, okay, you stay at left cornerback. So we know for sure, or it seems likely if the usage continues, that we're not going to see Peterson shadowing Beckham. So, and Beckham tends to line up on the other side of the field. So maybe we'll actually have Beckham in the best possible situation he could be in for this spot. Sean, go ahead.
So let's see what you guys think about this line. But in honor of Saquon Barkley last night, I'm going to go 66.5 receiving yards. But you guys all laid out great points, and it just shows sort of the uncertainty in this. So I'm curious where you guys have him right now.
I think that's go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I have him a little bit over actually. The Cardinals have been really bad, just period, against quarterbacks. So I do have him right at around 70, and maybe I'll lower it, but right now, I have him a bit over it. He's my wide receiver 18, so I'm not totally down on him or anything. I just don't. Yeah. I have Landry at 7, so I do have a good bit of separation between the two.
Sean, did you adjust this line at all based on our conversation?
Not really. I mean, I had it at 64. That's just rolling over the model to the next week, not putting too much thought into it. But what you said about Patrick Peterson makes sense. And I don't know. I just think 66.5. I would say Raybon is probably right. I would say if they played this game 1,000 times, his average would probably be low 70s. But his median would probably be in the mid 60s, if that makes sense. That's a wide range of outcomes.
Yeah. I have it at 67.5. Nice. So we're really close. I guess I would take the over, although I don't want to.
Right. You would rather have like a over 80.5 at like plus 200, right?
Right. Yeah.
Something where, like a higher payout for a ceiling game. Yeah, exactly. It's a tough projection this week for sure.
How many passing yards do you guys have Baker throwing for?
Oh, good question. I have him at 270, right around 270 right now.
Yeah, I'm at 277, and that feels high just given the lack of attempts. But Arizona they bump him up a little bit in terms of attempts, and then they bump up his YPA a little bit just because they've been such a good matchup. So
and like Freeman mentioned, Njoku, he shook the rust off last week, but he should be closer to 100% this week, so that helps significantly against the Cardinals this week. So that could help boost him more. But he's a tricky projection this week as well.
Yeah, I have 265. I mean, pretty close. We're all in the neighborhood there.